Now let's introduce our guests who are with us in the studio. In the right corner and the left corner.
In the blue corner.
The blue corner.
We have.
And then this one is what? Blue and black corner.
No, we are
both
blue.
blue corner.
I think they are yellow.
Yeah?
Okay.
Okay. So in the yellow corner.
Yeah.
We're coming in at 120 pounds. Punching heavily in. His Excellency Josephat Nanok, the Director General of the William Ruto Presidential Campaign Team. He is also, of course, the Governor of Turkana County. Your Excellency, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
It's good to have you in the Situation Room.
Thank you.
For the first time in a long time.
I'm happy to be here.
And representing the blue team is the Governor of Laikipia County, His Excellency Derito Muriithi. He's the Chairman of the RAILA Odinga Presidential Campaign Board. Your Excellency, as well, welcome.
Thank you very much indeed.
And we want to thank you both for accepting our invitation so we can have this national conversation this morning. This is basically looking at the two presidential teams and what your campaigns are promising Kenyans. Why go for RUTO? Why go for RAILA? In whose hands are we safe? That's a question that we are asking this morning. Between RAILA and RUTO, in whose hands are we safe? Of course, this is to acknowledge that there are very many other presidential candidates. Yes, of course, we know that Walter Mongare is a presidential candidate. There is a businesswoman, Muthoni Grita, who is also a presidential candidate. And there are many others who have expressed their interest. We want to talk to these particular ones because they've been grabbing the limelight in the headlines. We want to have this conversation in a very civil manner. We know that you're both very civil, but we also want to have a conversation that is very candid. Let's look at what is happening in the country. Let's look at what we need to have to see in the country going forward.
On a light note,
yes.
Eric, on a light note, we were chuckling as we were waiting outside with my friend and saying, right now we are frenemies.
Yeah, your frenemies.
Yes, we are friends, but we are in competition. You may not know, but we went to the same primary school with Nanok. And later on, of course, we served in the 10th Parliament. We were both assistant ministers for Kibaki. And in fact, worked out of the same building. So we've known each other for a while.
So these are two Laikipia boys.
Laikipia rules, I think.
Two Laikipia boys who are basically managing the presidential campaigns. Friends from school.
Two good Kenyan leaders.
Kenyan leaders.
Good Kenyan leaders.
Who have also understood devolution, who have run devolution.
Yeah. Indeed.
Governor Nanok for 2 terms.
Yeah.
Your first term as well, Governor Muriithi. So you understand the country.
Absolutely.
From top to bottom. Or is it from bottom up? Governor Nanok.
We understand Kenya. We understand the issues that the Kenyans are facing.
Okay. What are those issues that Kenyans are facing, and what is it that the William Ruto presidential campaign basically is saying? If we were to say 3 main things that William Ruto wants to do, should he be elected president of the country, what are those 3?
Let me tell you. First, I was happy to hear that the topic we are discussing is in whose hands are you safe? And sort of how do we define safety in the Kenyan context? It is basically the priorities that are affecting the Kenyan people today. Poverty is the rampage. The cost of living is very high. The cost of survival is very high. Unemployment is very high. 1.7 million people have just lost their jobs over the last 2-3 years. 16 million Kenyans cannot be able to get a job. So priorities for Kenyans is the basic stuff. And it is this basic stuff that presidential aspirant for UDA, William Ruto, has focused his campaign manifesto that it has to be a discussion about the economy. And indeed, he has done marvelously well by moving the discussion in Kenya for the first time away from the sheer politics, away from ethnicity and tribalism, into a discussion by all contestants about the economy, how we can be able to lift up the millions of Kenyans that are facing serious problems as we speak now. The second one also is about how do we turn our politics to focus on inclusion? How do we do inclusion in the politics? How do we inclusion in the economy? How do we bring Kenyans into the inclusion in the social sector? And I think those are the key pillars of William Samoei Ruto's campaign. As of now, he is an aspirant, just like all the other candidates, they are all aspirants. They all turn into be candidates once IEBC has accepted their candidacy. Thank you.
So just to recap the three things again, one by one, just so that everybody is clear as we're going forward. Number one is inclusion. Politics of inclusion.
Political inclusion, social inclusion, and economic inclusion.
And so those are the three.
Yeah.
Political inclusion, social inclusion, and economic inclusion.
Yeah.
All right. Governor Mureithi, your Azimio candidate, RAILA Odinga, has several campaign pledges. What are the key pillars of this campaign? Three things.
Indeed. But just perhaps to correct an impression created by my colleague, it's not really the first time we are debating economy. If you look at Kibaki campaigns of the 90s, they're actually based on economy. If you look at going back to the year 1997, President Kibaki, then candidate Kibaki, is promising 500,000 jobs a year. And you see this again in the 2002, the National Rainbow Revolution, frankly, again very much focused on economy. And when the Rainbow do go into government, in fact, their main drive and thrust is to drive the economy, and Kibaki is able to move real wages from something like 7,000 shillings per person per month in real terms to something like 33,000. So it has generally been about economy. The question is, what then about the economy? What exactly is it? Because you see, it's very easy to say social inclusion or economic inclusion, but what is it in real terms? Because remember, politics without clear policy is just rhetoric. So let me go to what it is that my aspirant, soon-to-be candidate, is talking about. How do you meaningfully create jobs? How do you meaningfully create 5 million jobs? And we are quite clear that you will do so through manufacturing. Manufacturing by whom? Who is it that, are you looking for Mzungus to come and set up factories here? No, we are looking to support actual Kenyan businesses, particularly small businesses, to expand and to grow. By doing what? By providing affordable credit, by providing better access to markets, by providing better access to technology. And we'll just give you an example. What we are doing in Laikipia and Nakuru now, because we also don't believe in just promising things that we've not tested. If you go to Laikipia and Nakuru now, a small business is able to access credit from the large commercial banks at 7.5%.
Governor, I hate to cut you short, but if you were to give us, because it's an introductory summary,
Indeed,
the three pillars. We've heard the UDA three pillars: inclusion, political, socio-economic.
Create 5 million jobs through manufacturing. Provide social protection, meaning 6,000 shillings per household for the most indigent households, estimated at about 1.5 million or so households that are the poorest of the poorest. Quality healthcare for all, being Baba Care.
All right.
Okay. And I think as we hear, from both sides, I think one of my questions has always been how this is going to play out. Maybe we can start with you, Governor Nanok. You talk about social inclusion, political inclusion, economic inclusion. How exactly will these be played out? Should then your candidate become president? How will this, and then can we have indicators as to how these may have already started playing out even before that time?
Thank you. Aspirant William Ruto presidential aspirant William Ruto is backed up by a very strong team, and he has a plan, and this plan is based on the 3 pillars that I've just mentioned. First is a political inclusion that I've talked about, and all this rotates about the constitution. Kenya has fought for a new constitutional dispensation for more than 20 years. And that's the reason why we have the 2010 constitution, which is very, very progressive, provides a Bill of Rights that shields and protects the citizenry of Kenya, provides independence of various organs, that provides checks and balances, the judiciary, the legislature, the independent institutions like IEBC, like EACC, and others. And so it is the protection of this constitution, the implementation of this constitution that is at the heart of our campaign manifesto, that we want to advance the constitutional implementation. We've only had a constitution that we've implemented for 9 years. 9 years, it's still very formative stages to think about changing it, and particularly changing 45% of that document when you have literally only implemented about 30%. And I think our basis is that we want to advance the implementation of this constitution to make sure that Kenyans get the fuller benefits of what it is provided. On economic inclusion, we have the bottom up. We're talking about the bottom up. And when we say the bottom up, we are basically discussing on a number of 3 key areas. One is lifting the productivity of majority of Kenyans. And you have to realize that Kenya still depends on agriculture. It's an agricultural-led economy. Almost 11 million Kenyans, majority, 70% of Kenyans depend on agriculture, smallholder. 1 acre, 2 acres, half an acre, and etc. Productivity is very low. If we increase that productivity by deploying government resources deliberately, then we can be able to bring down both the cost of living, but we can be able to have surplus productivity, which we can sell both locally and outside. You have to realize that we are an importing country, even on basic food commodities. Then second, it is going to be based on addressing the market. We have 16 million. Our economy is based on the micro and small sector. 16 million Kenyans are in that sector. The formal sector is only about 2 million. And out of this 16 million, 11 million are struggling. And it is this team that we want government to inject deliberate resources to lift them up so that their incomes, daily incomes moves from $1 to $2 to probably $4 to $5. And so that is the focus of the bottom up, trying to lift so that we have a much broader number of people who are contributing to the economy. We have a much broader section that is also paying taxes and contributing to revenue. We have a much broader sector of economy that is helping the fewer, the 2 million who've been heavily paying taxes to carry that burden.
Governor Nanok, if I may ask you,
and then
as you
on
say
the
some
social,
of these matters, your candidate has been in a government at least for the last 9 years, has been part of a government where, from what I hear you saying, these things have not occurred. What would then be the difference if and when he became president, that then we would see some of these things happen? Because the issues that you talk about, Kenyans have been suffering them for the longest time. What would be a significant change then that would bring these things to be? Agriculture, even if you just use agriculture, where we've had an issue of drought in the country for the longest time. We have issues of expensive inputs. We have issues of cheaper imports. And we have the Kenyan farmer continuing to suffer. We don't have enough in terms of food that we then have to import food. And your candidate has been part of this government for at least the last 9 years. What would make the difference moving forward?
I think you have to interrogate what was the manifesto for Jubilee when it came into power in 2013 and 2017. And basically, part of that is what they have been implementing. What William Ruto is promising now is what he wants to deliver when he's heading that government. And of course, there are challenges that current government as it is now have been experiencing. I think you have to realize that the biggest priority it was focusing on its first term was infrastructure. It is done very well on infrastructure. But when you don't have anything to move on those roads, those beautiful roads and beautiful railway, then you have a challenge because people don't have the incomes they need. The second phase of Jubilee has been the Big Four. And the Big Four haven't been successful as had been planned. I think the focus changed much later. So you cannot be able to, and of course, being a deputy, you have to do what the head asks you to do. So if those responsibilities that he had assumed much earlier have been taken away and by being implemented by someone else within government, then this particular candidate is not to blame. And you have history to tell you. I think when we elected President Kibaki to be president, he had served President Moi for quite a while. And many of the candidates now have been part and parcel of the various administrations. So I think we have to look at the particular candidate, what they are promising and what they want to execute. And I believe that what William Ruto is promising is achievable within the current existing budget.
Well, look, if I might just chip in here, you ask, and this particular aspirant was in fact Minister for Agriculture in Kibaki time, and then subsequently Deputy President in the Jubilee administration both terms. So I personally am skeptical because I know that government is not just one person. Government is all of us. And even Governor Nanok and I, when we were assistant ministers, we had plenty to contribute to what was happening in government. So for instance, when they say protection of the Constitution, Kenyans can be forgiven for wondering, but you are the same people who opposed the enactment of this Constitution. How can we trust you with it? When they say that it's about focusing resources to support small businesses, I mean, well, what is stopping you from doing it now? Because we know, at least we can give you examples of Nakuru, where the county government is focusing resources on uplifting productivity of small business. We can give you an example of Laikipia, where a county government is able to focus resources to uplift these small businesses, and they have numbers to show for it. Now you're serving as the second most important person in the land. Why is this only futuristic? Where is your track record for us to go by? And I want to go slightly deeper into this question of government. How do you build productivity? Is it by transferring so-called government resources to the small business or the small farmer? I doubt it very much indeed. You grow the productivity of the small farmer by assisting her to use tools and machines. Because when she's just digging using her hand, that's the productivity that she has. So the next step for smallholder agriculture in Kenya is better access to irrigation and the use of tools and machines. The question is, where are those tools and machines made? They need to be made in Kenya. That is what is manufacturing. When we are making our own tools and machines that we're using in our small businesses and in our smallholder farmer, when you look at the small manufacturer, what is the issue? The issue of competitiveness has to do with the cost of electricity. It has to do with cost of distribution. It also has to do with the cost of raw material. So if you take a small manufacturer, say in Nanyuki, she's paying 21 shillings per kilowatt hour for this energy. Why? Because of some crooked deals done in the past on these, thermal plants. Now, she is competing with somebody in India who is paying 5-6 shillings per kilowatt hour. What are they making? They're both making shaft cutters. So the Kenyan shaft cutter will be more expensive. What is it that Azimio is going to do? Azimio is looking at bringing down the cost of electricity, is looking at bringing down the cost of logistics and distribution. And again, we have examples. Today, if you're a small business in Laikipia, you will get a rebate from government of Laikipia to buy down 40% of your cost of manufacturing. Not in the future. Now, Azimio wants to scale that up, not just for Laikipia, but nationally. And so that we are talking about practical, real things and going beyond some sexy sounding slogans.
But I think, let me just respond to my colleague and differ with him. And I think, as he said, we've been very old friends, but we differ when it comes to policy issues and the direction which the country should go. And I believe that it is a bottom-up that is going to provide this direction. First is, when we go into an election or enact a constitution, there's a contestation. There are those who will agree with it. There are those who will say that there are certain things that they are not good in the constitution, so they will oppose it. And that's what William Ruto did. But once Kenyans accepted this is a document for Kenya, then he had no choice other than believe in that document and implement that constitution, that document. I think what we are asking is 9 years sufficient for us to begin tearing down the constitution and making 40% changes? Were we serious at that first time when we were enacting it? And I think that's a question. Is 9 years small, short, or is 9 years sufficient for us to think about implementing it?
Second, as you leave that point,
let him finish.
I gave you time.
Let him
Proceed.
finish.
The issue of small-scale businesses, I think we've done this in very micro. Every county has done this on their own. National government has done this, not deliberately, but very pockets. But I think we want to see a deliberate, serious, on day one, a serious campaign to put resources. And William Ruto has said he will allocate from the budget 50 billion shillings to small businesses. And 50 billion shillings translates to 100 million to every constituency. This is sufficient resources to invigorate the local markets. This is sufficient resources to invigorate the small businesses. And this is sufficient resources that will lift all the other boats and generate demand for medium and larger businesses. When it comes to production, we are talking about concrete things we want to do on year one. The cows are there. The land is there. The crops can be planted. It is the incentives. It is the inputs that needs to put in. Of course, we want to accept that we need to produce machines. We need to produce things locally. But you can't do it in year one. It will take you 2 to 3 years. We want something that in the first shot, we can be able to begin to put the country into a trajectory of stability in paying its debt, but also on stability of securing, because we are discussing of a bulging youth. If we don't do anything to this youth, then we are in a crisis. 800,000 young people are getting into the job market, but we are not able to do. The formal sector can only accommodate 50,000 every year. What happens to the rest if we don't put immediate action plans? So the bottom up has those considerations. And I believe that our competitors are discussing about a plan that is in the air. There is no concrete plan that is being promised to any particular county. There's no concrete plan
castles in the sky.
that's promised to any particular county.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break. It's 26 minutes to 9. We are having a heated conversation. Now it's actually beginning to warm up nicely. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. In whose hands are we safe? Their campaign managers are here. His Excellency Derito Mureithi chairing the Raila Odinga Presidential Campaign Board,
I'm not
and His
aware that
Excellency
Uhuru
Josephat
Kenyatta is a
Nanok. Oh, did I say Uhuru?
Yes.
Oh, Raila Odinga and William Ruto.
Do not worry. 2017 is not
His
so
Excellency
far.
Josephat
No, they're
Nanok
very
is the
candid.
Director General of the William Ruto Presidential Campaign.
Two against
We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room.
The conversation continues on SpiceFM until 10 o'clock this morning with a double header. His Excellency Josephat Nanok, the Director General of the William Ruto Presidential Campaign, and His Excellency Derito Mureithi, the Chairperson of the Raila Odinga Presidential Campaign. Both, of course, are governors like Kipia and Turkana. Derito Mureithi told us what the Raila Odinga Presidential Campaign wants to focus on, like 3 key things. 1, creation of jobs, 5 million jobs. Social protection, the 6,000 shillings to the poor. And then there is Baba Care, which is healthcare for all. And then the William Ruto Presidential Campaign has talked about inclusion, political inclusion, social inclusion, economic inclusion. As we were taking a break, Governor Nanok was explaining that theirs is sort of like a stimulus. Immediately inject 50 billion shillings to the national budget to SMEs, translating to about 100 million shillings per constituency. Immediately embark on supporting farmers across the country in agriculture and many other things. And C.T. Muga at that point wanted to ask a question.
You see, I'm actually surprised that both these esteemed excellencies, our listeners may forgive me for actually saying that they both seem to be saying the same thing, just trying to use different words to explain the same thing. Now, history will bear me witness that if you want to understand what is referred to as the economic model for bottom-up, the best way of explaining in a country like ours is the county system. Because the county system was purposed to ensure that the common denominator, who's the mwananchi, actually has whatever they need at the doorstep. So it isn't the national government that is doing all these things. And if you take the view that the vast majority of our population, apart from being youth, are in the rural areas, you could also argue successfully that the counties are precisely that. They take care of this. So any plan that any political party talks about and doesn't focus on what goes to the counties, you're talking about giving money, 100 billion, 200 billion, for purposes of lively discussion, make it 500 million. If it isn't embedded in a system like the county system, which already exists, and is only at the national level, then what really do you hope to achieve in ensuring that this mwananchi that every politician talks about actually gets the help that they should get? I would have assumed that this devolution process goes further, so that it's at the county level, devolve it further. A fund, we already have one called CDF, make sure that the MCAs also have a fund, meaning keep devolving this thing so that the very thing you're saying you're able to do, one can see the face of it because the structure already exists. A question of tweaking it. Excellency Nanok, let me ask the question. 9 years, is that not enough time to interrogate a constitution to determine what you need and what you don't need? Or how many more years do you think we need in order to look at the constitution and determine the things we ought to change or ought not to change? Please, the two of you react.
Can I just
colleague
begin?
can
I think
have a go at it, and then I will.
Presidential aspirant William Ruto has been the first one to speak about bottom up, and I believe that the Azimio team has just copied many of the things that we had, and that's why they are cutting shortcuts. Because for us, when we talk about agriculture, we are speaking about not only the farmers, the lowest farmers, who are more or less constituting 90% of the people who are farming, but we're talking about developing the entire value chain. And so that's the first. Second is that candidate William Ruto and the team they're with are focused on ensuring that once elected, the promises you have made to Kenyans are going to be implementable. and it is achievable. And I think the promises we're making are basically promises that are going to be touching the people on the ground. And they are promises that will not only look at unemployment, but critical part of productivity and critical part of the stumbling blocks that have made productivity, that have made businesses not be able to operate. And these are the stumbling blocks that we will need to be focusing on, so that we can be able to unlock that productivity.
If you were to be specific, Governor Nanok, talk about agriculture. So what exactly is RUTO going to do with agriculture? Because you're saying it's going to be immediate. I mean, these are people who are there already. They are cows, they are farmers. So what exactly is it going to do immediately?
Number one, if you look at the dairy industry, where the cows are there, I think we have about 3 million cows. We produce about 3 billion liters of milk almost every year. And this is from productivity of 2 to 4 liters of milk per cow. If you were to put inputs into this cow and be able to produce even double that, or even 10 liters, that means that we have sufficient milk to sell. As of now, the country is importing milk. And we have the largest dairy industry in Africa. We are competitive enough to be able to turn around and milk the dairy industry, one of the biggest income earners for the country.
What is the problem with our productivity per cow, and what needs to be done?
The problem is feed, and I think the problem is feed. I think the cost of feed is very high. We are importing 90% of the feed for our livestock, be it cows, be it chicken, and a focus on that will help turn that around. The second is focusing on feed itself, the sunflower, the soybeans. This is going to be the biggest focus that we think we can be able to focus on to bring the cost of feed down, but also reduce imports if we can be able to produce this one within the country. And we have that ability because there's a lot of potentialities here that have not been fully exploited.
I'm sure, Governor, I want to dwell on that for a bit. I'm sure even Governor Derito Muriithi will tell us the same thing. We know it's a cost of inputs. We know we don't have enough cotton seed cake. We don't have sunflower seed cake.
I won't tell you the same thing. It's just that I haven't had an opportunity.
You'll say it in a different way.
Not in a different way.
Let me finish my question to him.
Let my brother have his space.
The issue then, as you say, we need to stop importing the feeds. We need to stop importing the inputs. So what are we going to do? What is RUTO saying that he's going to do?
We can produce sunflower here. We can produce soybeans in this country. Western Kenya has the biggest potential to produce that. The whole of northern Kenya, including Turkana, with irrigation, I can tell you we've piloted, and it is easier to do large-scale production of this to be able to reduce the cost we are incurring in importing these feed products. It is doable. We only need the government to focus on it. And the other issue that you have to realize, I have been a chairman of the Council of Governors, the third chairman for 2 years. And I believe that devolution has made a difference to this country. And the resources going to devolution is only 15% of what we collect from taxes. 85% still remains at the national level. And William Ruto's focus is to organize that development budget that remains at the national level to be able to provide direct support on the ground. We will look at the existing structures in government to be able to provide that support direct to businesses and direct to agriculture. I think we have farmer cooperatives, we have farmer institutions that are supporting agriculture, we have institutions that are supporting businesses. This will be the focus of organizing the ground to make sure that these promises are implemented.
Okay. So, Governor Muriithi,
Thank you.
back to the question by CT.
Thank you, Eric. First of all, I want to draw back a little bit to the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And my colleague would have us believe that his candidate, although he opposed can be trusted to implement it. Let me remind you, his candidate or his aspirant was one of the key negotiators of that Constitution of Kenya 2010.
Very true.
Yeah. So isn't it a bit disingenuous? You are leading the team of negotiators putting together this constitution, and you're the very first one to oppose it. You're the very first one to oppose it. So I found that either you believe in something or you don't, but I personally would have difficulties believing in you because you were there. Yeah, it is, in terms of political negotiation, it was Uhuru Kenyatta on one side and William Ruto on the other at the 28-member parliamentary constitutional making committee that used to meet in Naivasha. So for him to have then come back out, and he was the lead negotiator to oppose, it was. But
are you saying the 30% of Kenyans who voted no should not?
No, that's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is,
because
if
William
you're
Ruto
in the
was
lead,
not the only one.
No, let me look. I allow me to make my points because I gave you your space.
Okay.
Yeah. 2, they are promising 50 billion shillings in support to small business. And let me rephrase that, preface that, Muga, by saying, of course, we are talking about the same problems or the same opportunities of society. And I'm glad that even they are convinced the next step for Kenya is about productivity, and the people to focus on are small businesses, and farmers. So they say they'll put 50 billion to support small business, and because that translates into 100 million per constituency, and that's okay, except, for example, for our people like us in Laikipia, we already have an economic stimulus program of 1.1 billion per constituency right now.
But you're doing infrastructure.
No,
you're
not
building
about
roads.
I wonder if you could let me finish, Nanok. And because you have relatives in Nyahururu, you can ask them what the money does. Yeah. The money is for working capital. The money is for asset finance. This has nothing to do with infrastructure. This is monies available at 7.5% to small businesses in Laikipia, and more than 700 have already benefited. The pot available from 4 large commercial banks is 1.1 billion for each of the 3 constituencies of Laikipia. So obviously, when our good pals show up saying, "Oh, we can assist you with 100 million," we don't really take them too seriously because they don't know what numbers they are talking about. You have challenged us to go to specific policy, and I want to go back then to the case of the farmer. Yeah, now, other than regurgitating that, yes, it is input, but whatever, the issue is that costs of feeds are high. They are high because the base raw material of wheat bran is expensive, because there is a big duty on imported wheat, and we import 90% of our wheat requirements. In 100 days of being in office, we as MIO expect to remove that duty, so that the cost of wheat and the rest of the can come down. So specific things. We know that at 6,000 shillings for a bag of fertilizer, the farmer may not make money. Our plan is to provide input subsidy so that the farmer is buying that bag of fertilizer at approximately 2,500 bob. On the question of how do you actually get a cow to produce more, I want to perhaps encourage my brother to look at it a bit deeper. It's not something that you do in a day. Yeah. So if he says that when he gets into the office, he's going to snap his fingers and the cows will start producing more, that cannot be the case.
But that's not what he said.
Yeah. What he was saying is that the cows are there.
Yes.
The cows are there,
yes.
And that they are looking at
within 1 year.
So even within 1 year, yes. to bring
to raise productivity,
to raise milk production of a cow is a process of nurturing, but also of breed improvement, and I don't think it takes necessarily 1 year.
Can I ask you then
Yeah,
on that,
sure.
Governor?
Yes,
Governor Muridi, you've also said something
It's
here
very
that we're
possible.
looking at the removal of wheat imports because this
Not wheat imports,
No,
the
subsidy.
duty.
the duty. All right.
The duty
So
on the wheat import.
the removal of the duty on on these imports, right? It sounds like something that you can just remove.
Absolutely.
If it's something that can be removed so simply, why do you think that it has not been done until now? If we're looking at the reduction on
And they're in
costs,
power.
why is it something that's not being done now? Because it is the suffering that we've been talking about for farmers up until this point, that many of them have even left their trade and said, you know what, we cannot continue because I'm working to pay back to government.
President
Until
of the
now.
country is
Well,
an
so-
Azimio.
So now, why is it not something that can be done today?
Well, frankly, it is a governance issue. One of the aspirants, if you recall, was sacked as Minister for Agriculture because of mismanaging, not just mismanaging, because of taking advantage of input subsidy. Instead of ensuring that the import subsidy is reaching the farmer, the subsidy is actually getting gobbled up by brokers, in the fertilizer distribution chain. So the reason some things have not happened, it's about governance. And that's why this debate, frankly, is about who can be trusted. And that's why, in my view, you framed the question really well. Allow me. You had your time and you will get more time. I am not evading the question. For example, your aspirant
Can it
was
be removed
sacked.
today?
Can it be
Governor
removed
Muridi,
today?
or not?
Can we have?
Can be
farmers?
because the taxation is a matter that is in the finance bill. You remove it from there, and that begins, in fact, to bring down the cost of input. But I go back to the point. I go back to the point. This election is about trust. It's about trust, because. And Muga said, "Oh, but these things sound somewhat similar. We are dealing with the same problems. So yes, they do sound somewhat similar. The question is, who can you trust?" And I think that's why you frame the question that way. In whose hands are safe? Because all these good salespeople will come and do the sales pitch, but who can you really trust? Which means you have to go to the question of character of the individuals. Which teams and which individuals have demonstrated resolute, have demonstrated fidelity, have demonstrated willingness to actually take even tough policy
Governor
choices.
Muridi, the president of this country is openly a supporter of Azimio. Now, the things that we say, my colleague Ndu asked the question, then Eric asked it further. These things that you say you can do, why don't you do them now? For instance, remove the subsidy. These are the things that can be done. Do them so that you say, folks, as we say that we can do these things, as the government, we've done this.
Well, first of all, CT Muga, we are not government. My aspirant is actually the leader of opposition. His aspirant
Has
is
the whole
government.
deep state.
His aspirant is the one who is deputy president, not mine.
I am glad you have brought this thing up in the way you have, Mweshimiwa, because you've gotten to the heart of the matter. Okay? This merry-go-round that the country is being taken through should cease. William Ruto is the deputy president of the country. Uhuru Kenyatta is the president. It's a presidency. We understand. Decision-making process, we can run around as much as we like, rest with the president. I am saying this. The government of the day is supporting a particular individual to show good fidelity. If indeed the things that they say they want to do, they can do, demonstrate it. That's really all I'm saying. Demonstrate. Yeah. Say, we have done this.
And I accept your challenge, Mr. Muga. But remember, the president has supported an aspirant, okay, who is not his deputy.
Has fully supported
Has
an opposition aspirant.
The president of the republic is himself a voter. It is also his job to manage succession and so on. As a CEO of this republic, he has stood out publicly and said, when I look at these contestants, I think CT Muga is better than Nanok. I mean, I think that is the responsibility to do. It is not to say that CT Muga has exactly the same policies as the president, but the president has said, when I look at what the choice in front of us as Kenyans, the Honorable Raila Odinga is a better
option.
You're dancing around this one, Governor Muriithi, completely.
Let me just contribute.
Yes.
And make
So your point being that
and make three issues.
You will do that, Governor Nanok, as we have got to take a break and say goodbye to the audience on KTN Home. This conversation, the debate continues on SpiceFM and online, and Governor Nanok will be responding to this. We are coming up to the top of the hour, and that's what I'm saying you're dancing around this, Governor Muriithi, is because if indeed the president is openly supporting and even sitting in negotiations about the next presidential candidate, whom he hopes to be the one that succeeds him, and your candidate has said, if I come in, administrative continuity is guaranteed. Why can't you float those ideas today, just like my colleagues are saying? And say, if it's a cost of production and it's high, and today, and this is something that can be done, let's do it. We have a budget that is before Parliament now. It's going to be passed. Start with that. Start him off on a good note. Why can't it be done? I mean, it's not something you can say that it should be done. Anyway, you respond to that, and also Governor Nanok will be adding his point on this as we take a quick break. We want to hear the news and say goodbye to the audience on KTN Home. The debate, in whose hands are we safe, between Raila Odinga and William Ruto?